The rule I have is if you hear about something 3 times, you better start paying attention. I'll tell you what that's about on today's video. How's it going? I'm Amelia Sims. This is Reinventing You, the channel where you can be inspired to go on your own reinventing journey so that you can live a life of joy, fulfillment, and purpose. I post twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and of course you can join me at any time. I would love it if you would give me a thumbs up if this video means something to you. Have you ever heard the saying that if you hear about something, an idea 3 times, then you need to start paying attention, whether it's the universe, God, the Holy Spirit, something's trying to get your attention. Well, I've always lived that way. If I hear about something 3 times, then I'm probably going to pay attention and say, okay, there's something to this. In doing a lot of research about rewiring our brains in order to reinvent ourselves, I realized something about our narratives. I've been doing a series about rewiring your brain because if you're going to make this change, if you're going to make an incredible change, if you're going to reinvent yourself, renew yourself, reboot yourself, you've got to start on the inside out. You don't just put on a face or a mask and change the outside. You've got to start the inside. And where that has to start is in your brain. And it is possible to rewire your brain. It is possible to change your mind, to literally change the way your neurons fire, the way your brain reacts. The way you do everyday actions can change. One of the things that I've been learning about our brains is that our brains are in this feedback loop. In other words, if you think a certain way or feel a certain way, maybe you're really angry. You're angry at the world, you're angry at your boss, you're angry at your wife, whatever. You're just angry at everybody. Then your brain is going to pick up on that. It's going to be producing those chemicals that, increase the anger, and that's just going to make you more angry. It's sort of this feedback loop. And so in order to get out of that, you've got to figure out, okay, well, how do I get over my anger? And, that could be something as, just kind of examining yourself, talking with somebody, a counselor or somebody trained, or somebody with just a good listening ear. It might be doing things differently, taking better care of yourself in terms of what you're eating, your exercise, sleep, all of those kinds of things. You can change all of those, but if you don't change your narrative, it's not going to matter. And when I say narrative, what I'm talking about is the story we each tell ourselves about who we are, where we came from, where we're going. It's not just about the way we see ourselves, it's about the way we think of ourselves. And that often determines how we act, how we react, and whether or not we're capable of reinventing ourselves. The story I actually have 2 stories, and the first one I went to a workshop where we were talking about social media. Specifically at that time we were talking about Facebook. And one of the women in the group was complaining that on Facebook it seemed like everybody, especially in her church, wanted positive, uplifting, look what we're doing kind of posts on Facebook. Like, look at the great meal we're having, look at this vacation, look at my great kids, all this kind of stuff. But she said, sometimes I want to be honest, like if I'm having a bad day or something's going wrong, or my kids have disappointed me, or my husband and I are on the outs, or whatever it is, I want to be able to post those. But she said, even if I post something that's not positive, somebody in the church will make a comment and turn it around and try to make it something positive. And she said, I'm tired of that. And we all told her, hey, it's your Facebook, it's your post, it's your narrative. You control the narrative. And that is exactly right. You control the narrative. It's not about anybody else or what anybody says about you or does. You know your own story, and you can change it if you want to change your life. I've been reading books on rewiring your brain, changing your mind, all of those kinds of things. And one of the books that I read was Master the Day by Alex Hine. And I have a link up here for his website if you want to check out some of his things. An excellent book called Master the Day. And one of the things he said in the book was you have to change your narrative in order to make changes in your life. Now, he was specifically talking about weight loss, and I'm going to come back to that idea. So that was the first thing. The second thing is on my channel, I always have all of these videos that I'm going to watch later, and I finally decided I've really got to watch some of these videos. So I clicked on one of them that I'd later video, and it was a woman who'd lost like 45 pounds, and I was like, okay, da 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 da. Then I really listened to what she said, and she was like doing the same thing that Alexander Hine had said. She had to change her narrative, and in doing that, changed her perception of herself, and she lost weight without a fad or going on a diet or doing anything. It had to do with her narrative. I've got a link up here if you want to check out her video. This is the one that I saw. And then I also listened to another video yesterday, an interview, and I was only half paying attention because I was baking and doing some other things. One of the things that I heard in the whole thing, the thing that stuck out for me, they talked about changing your narrative. You are the one who constructs your story, and you can change who you are by the story you give. And specifically, they were talking about what you truly want to do in your life. And the person was saying he was doing two things. He was writing and he had a major business, and he finally had to say, who do I see myself as? And when he created that narrative, he realized he saw himself as a writer. And so he had to make some really tough decisions. And I also have that video that I watched up here if you want to check it out. And I tell you all this is because the third time I hear about the narrative, it's like, oh, this is a key. This is something important for me. And so I'm going to go back to what I was talking about, Alexander Hine's Master of the Day, when he talked about the narrative, is specifically the narrative about losing weight. And I started to think about it in terms of my own narrative. I've always had this story that I guess my mother had told me. Whether she got it right, I don't know. But you know, the narrative is not exactly the truth, but it's the story as you see it. And what it was I was adopted at 4 months old, but between my birth and the time that I was adopted, I lived with a foster mother. And in that time, I had something called failure to thrive. In other words, I guess because I had not bonded with my mother or bonded with anybody, that I was not eating, I was not reacting, I was just kind of bleh. So the foster mother took me to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician said, she's not eating, she needs to gain some weight. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a turkey baster, and we're going to fill it with, I guess it was like cream of wheat, you know, the cream, whatever you feed babies. What is it, cream of wheat? Anyway, we're going to put that and just force it down her throat so that she will eat and she will thrive. Well, it worked. I gained weight. I was adopted, and I've always been a healthy person, pleasantly plump. And part of my narrative is that because I was forced to eat at a young age, when you're not supposed to be having solid foods, and it was a kind of a rescue mission in order to keep me alive, it was something that replaced emotions. Apparently, I didn't have whatever emotional need that I was getting, so I got it through food, and I was forced to it. So, you know, part of my narrative is I've always been this way because I was forced to do it, and I have an emotional connection with eating. Eating helps something emotionally in me. That has always been my narrative. And as long as that is my narrative, I will never be able to lose weight. I will never be able to keep the weight off because I will always go back to that. My brain has accepted that as my narrative. And even if I went on a diet, or I've done some dieting, but I've always gained the weight back. It's like my brain is like, okay, your story is this, and so I'm always going to make sure you're a heavy person. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. Our brains listen to our narratives, and our brains impact who we are. Now, this could be about your weight. This could be about some kind of inability in your life to have a healthy relationship. This could be about your attitude. Maybe you're one of those people that you're not happy unless you're unhappy because you have a narrative in your head that says you will never be happy. Or maybe your narrative is you're never good enough. You're never going to do well enough in school. You're never going to do well enough in your job. You're going to do well enough in your marriage. You're not going to do well enough in your synagogue or your church. You are not good. If that's your narrative, you've got to change it. My challenge for you today is sit down and first of all, figure out what narrative, what is the thing is going in your head, a story about yourself that is limiting you in some area of your life. It could be your health, it could be your physical body, it could be your mental state, it could be your emotions. I don't know what it is. Maybe you were abused as a child. Maybe you grew up poor. Maybe you grew up rich. I don't know. Whatever it is, whatever the narrative you have in your head, sit down and think about what it is. And then I want you, my challenge is to change it. How can you make that narrative a positive one? I'm working on it. I challenge you to work on yours. If this has been a meaningful video for you, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to comment below if you are going to be working on changing your narrative for your life. I want you to live a life of joy, fulfillment, and purpose. And I believe many of us can do that by reinventing ourselves. I'm Amelia. This is Reinventing You. Have a great one.